Hello and welcome to LaSalle University Career Center's Introduction to Resume Writing presentation. In our resume writing presentation, we will review the purpose of and qualities of a strong resume, how to successfully format and organize your document, and how to write effective bullet points. We will speak in more detail about how to not just list the skills, attributes, and strengths that you have, but how to incorporate those into your bullet points and do so in a way that impresses hiring managers and employers. Finally, we will wrap up with a few do's and don'ts to pay attention to when creating, reviewing, and updating your resume. And of course, remind you of how and when to reach out to us and where you can find us. Resumes are to showcase your skills, abilities, talents, and accomplishments. To a recruiter, they are the very first impression of you before any interaction even takes place. That is why it is important to provide them with a quick advertisement or snapshot of who you are and what you have done in an effective and concise way. Writing a resume requires an understanding of grammar, spelling, and how to use word processing software as well. Finally, the purpose of a resume is not to get you a job directly, but to land you an interview in which you can speak about your resume and accomplishments further. In order to best showcase your skills, abilities, talents, and accomplishments that we discussed in the last slide, you need to make sure your resume is easy to read and follow and well written so that the hiring manager doesn't discount it simply because they are struggling to navigate or understanding the content. A way to help guide the reader through your documents so that they can see that you're a good fit for the job is to organize your document well with headings for each section. It is also helpful to be short and concise with your bullet point statements, but also the resume as a whole. It is also helpful not just to be short and concise with your bullet point statements, but also the resume as a whole. This is why we recommend one-page resumes for most students. For some who have a large amount of work experience or are completing their graduate degrees, they may need 2 pages. As I mentioned in the last slide, since the purpose of the resume is to get you an interview where you will have the chance to discuss your experiences in more detail, you don't need to cover every single detail in the resume itself. On top of organization and resume length, you want to ensure it is entirely free of errors, because it shows you take the time to proofread and take care of every detail. Avoiding repeating words or phrases can help demonstrate your written communication skills and hold the reader's interest. Within your nicely organized sections, the best resumes will have well-written points that describe and support your experience and skills background and highlight your strengths. Finally, your resume is a work in progress. You're constantly honing your skills and taking on new responsibilities. So make sure you are updating your resume at least once every year. The first step to creating your resume is to determine what kind of sections you want to include and the specific heading each section will have. Specific headings keep your resume organized, make your educational and professional journey clear, and help the reader understand your background and experiences. You want to arrange each heading and section so that the material that is most relevant to the job to which you are applying is written first, and so on. Under each heading within each section, you want to list items in reverse chronological order, starting with current jobs and going back in time from there, ending in the oldest position you held. For more of a visual, here's how these headings are usually organized overall, and some examples of headings used. For students, often your resume will follow a similar order to this example. Name and contact information at the top, followed by education, relevant and work experience, and additional information. This final section usually covers on-campus activities or volunteer work, professional memberships, and skills, among other items. Now we will take a closer look at the elements to include and the ways to organize the information within each section and underneath each heading. The education section typically will come first for students and recent graduates. If you have more than one degree, as you can see by the second example here, list them in reverse chronological order. First, you will list the name of the school and the city and state in which it is located. Next, you can include your degree title and date graduated or expected graduation. For this information, make sure you know the name of your degree, and for your graduation date, only include the month and year with the word expected if you are still in school. Underneath this information, you can have your GPA included if it's 3.0 or above, and other optional details to add are awards and honors or academic achievements. And finally, coursework is optional and only recommended if you do not have any or a lot of relevant experience to the field to which you're applying. The experience section should include all internships, jobs, and experiences that are relevant to the major or industry you're applying to. If you do not have experience directly related to the job or field you are applying to internships or jobs in, you can have a section entitled Work Experience. But if you do have this background, you can create a relevant experience section and include these positions held. Some resumes will have both a relevant experience and work experience section because there are still transferable skills from the non-relevant opportunities that is worth noting on the resume. Different titles you can use for this section include relevant experience, field placement and practicum, clinical rotations or experience, work or professional experience, additional work experience, and even a research or relevant project if they are related to the things you are applying to and haven't held off-campus positions yet. Within each section, you should have the organization name listed followed by city and state on the same line. The next line will have your position title and the date range you held that position aligned on the right-hand side of the page. Under this subheading, you will list your bullet point statements. A bullet point statement will represent a responsibility you held in the position you are discussing. When writing bullet points, you want to make sure you don't speak in first person and avoid any personal pronouns. There is a great formula to follow to make sure you communicate to the hiring manager the specific experience you had, the skills used and developed, and any results achieved from successfully carrying out the responsibility and utilizing these skills. The formula will start off with what is known as a power or action verb that represents a skill or skills used. Then you will describe how you use the skill by explaining the identifiable task. Finally, you can round out the skill or responsibility statement by discussing the method used to complete the task and the purpose or result. Some bullet point statements will include the method and the purpose or result, or will only include one of these. Use your judgment to decide what best communicates your skills and experience, especially regarding the specific requirements of the job you are applying for. Bullets can seem daunting to write, but a great way to start building your bullet is to use the formula or ask yourself the questions. What did I do? How did I do it? Why did I do it? Or what was the result? Here are some more tips and tricks on how to write a strong bullet point. You should have about 3 to 5 bullets, and this should include a mix of responsibility and/or accomplishment statements throughout your resume. Here's some examples of why you want to start each bullet off with a strong verb. Avoid the dull responsible for and lead with the powerful verb. For example, instead of saying you were responsible for executing marketing plan, say executed a marketing plan. Also, you want to focus on results if there was anything achieved. Think about the outcomes of your efforts, such as planned fundraiser event that drew 500 people and raised $1,500 for cancer research, and skip the part where you cleaned up after the event. Try to avoid listing basic job tasks if you can. Finally, use numbers to bring your bullets to life and really show what you're capable of. Saying sold products isn't impressive, but adding that you increased sales by 30% is. Ask yourself how much, how many, how often, and sprinkle in numbers where it makes sense. It adds little to say you presented to an audience of 5, but if the audience was 200 people, be sure to add that data. After your experience sections, you will include activities you are involved in on and off campus. Let the heading of your title represent what kind of activities you are involved in. For example, maybe you held leadership positions. You could call this section Leadership and Activities. Or if you have a lot of volunteer experience, are an athlete, or are a member of a few professional memberships, you can apply those titles instead. In this section, you can format the subheadings differently than your work or relevant experience areas above. Just make sure you include the organization or club title, your position, and that they are formatted consistently. Finally, use bullet points only under titles, positions, or organizations that are relevant to your industry or noteworthy. This means you don't have to adhere to the 3 to 5 bullet point rule that applied in the previous sections. You can have 1 bullet point for a certain club and no bullet points for another, depending on notability. Finally, the section that is usually last on your resume is the skills section. There are certain fields and industries where your skills may be listed higher on the resume because your profession has very specific and relevant technical skills. Use your best judgment when deciding the placement. For the skills section, you are only including what are called your hard or technical skills. This includes computer programs you are comfortable using, multiple languages spoken, etc. You want to avoid using soft skills or personal attributes such as communication skills or strong multitasking, which we will explain further on the next slide. For this kind of skills section, be sure to only add skills that an employer in your industry would care about and that you are very confident with or fluent in. You can also ask yourself, If I had to use this application my first day on the job, could I use it comfortably? Or, if I'm asked in the interview to speak in that language, could I do so without hesitation? Regarding the soft skills mentioned, it is common for recruiters to see things such as good at working in a team, driven to work hard, dedicated, and good communication skills. These are boring and a little too vague and will not land you an interview. Simply stating these on your resume without evidence or examples to back them up does little to tell your story. Paint a picture in the recruiter's mind of what you can do. Tell them how and why you have good communication skills, such as maintained a 3.5 GPA while working part-time, going to class, and leading a chapter of 30 students in the Honors History Club as president tells more about being driven than simply saying the word. Take a few minutes to review these additional examples and to show you how effective it is to exhibit your skills and back them up with evidence. Now that we have reviewed the purpose of a resume and how to organize and create interesting and strong content, here are a few do's and don'ts to keep in mind when getting your resume started and proofreading it at the end. Do use a professional and legible font, but don't use templates found on Word, Indeed, or other platforms, as they cannot be processed by online applicant tracking systems. Do keep your font all the same size except your name, which can be larger. Also, for the text below your name, it should be between the sizes of 10 to 12 points. Avoid using flashy colors or fonts, which can be distracting and are often used in the aforementioned templates. Don't speak in first person or use personal pronouns, but do stick to one page if you are an undergraduate student and still building your work experience. Don't include a headshot or photo to avoid any bias. Do maintain consistent formatting so it's easy to navigate. Don't list interests or hobbies and instead focus on your skills and responsibilities. Do utilize current and past job descriptions and ONET to assist with bullet point writing. Do save your resume PDF with your last name, first name, resume, and date, and avoid just saving it as resume.docx. Hiring managers and recruiters will lose your resume, so make it as easy as possible for them to remember you and not lose your application. This concludes the LaSalle University Career Center's Introduction to Resume Writing presentation. Thank you so much for watching, and here's the information on where you can find us and how and when to reach us. We have a variety of career resources with drop-in hours and appointment times available through Handshake. Be sure to follow us on social media and check out our website and Handshake to find out about our upcoming programming and events.